Hello and thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be doing some setup and preparation for a refight of the Battle of Sandershausen in 1758 between a Hessian force and a French force. The battle took place just outside the town of Sandershausen in central Germany. A small force of Hessians was retiring before the advance guard of the French and decided to make a stand in a narrow area on the sort of lower slopes of the mountains there. I've set up my table to represent the key features on the battlefield. So the terrain rises from the side of the French, so that the Hessians are on the high ground, and on both flanks of the Hessian position there are steep wooded areas that make it difficult for the formed troops of the time to manoeuvre through. On one side there was a French force under the command of Broglie, which was the advance guard for one of the French armies operating in Germany. And on the other side, a small force under the command of Prince Eisenberg, principally of Hessians, and many of those militia battalions, that was intending to try and to protect the electorate of Hesse from the invasion of the French. Not one of the more well-known battles, but an interesting one nevertheless. Here is the order of battle for Sandershausen, and as you'll be able to see, the Hessians are outnumbered. There are at least 2,000 more French, but in quality terms the French are also superior. The Hessians have 3 militia battalions. A lot of the grenadiers are also militia, and the invalid battalion that is sort of in the second line is just that. It's a broken set of men and can't be expected to actually fight at all, really. Here we are on the Hessian right, which was anchored on the river Fulda, and the ground down to the river Fulda was wooded, steep and cut with ravines. And in this area there was a force of Jäger and a composite grenadier battalion. On the left flank was a small homestead of Ellenbach that was again occupied by some Jäger, and that was protected because it had a steep wooded gully coming up to... So this area here is a steep gully. There's a steep slope here and a steep slope on the other side, which makes it very difficult for formed troops. Between those two positions, Eisenberg drew up his line of battle. It was made up of 2 regular battalions and 3 militia battalions. A 4th battalion stood behind, but that was made up of invalids and was very weak. On his left flank, he put together his mounted arm, which was 4 squadrons, so not particularly strong. Now, this deployment is a little bit in doubt, but I've followed here the layout from the Hessian State Archives. If you look at the Chronostaff website, where it uses the maps of the German General Staff, of maybe 100 years later, 150 years later, it has the line formed up 200 yards further forward, and uses the Ellenbach building complex to anchor the left of its line, and then across to the River Fulda on the right. I've gone with the Hessian State Archive, where I believe the reports of Isenberg sort of indicate a slightly different layout, as I've followed here. Broglie's French force was considerably larger and of uniformly better quality. He had more cavalry, more infantry, more artillery. But he was attacking up a slope into a bit of a funnel. And so he couldn't bring all his troops to bear at the same time. My intention is to fight this battle using the Twilight of the Sun King rules, although there will need to be a couple of amendments. Principally, there are no light troops in these rules, so I'll have to do some house rules for those. And they are intended for slightly bigger battles where each unit is either a regiment or a brigade. But I really don't see why I can't just use them for battalions instead, and that's what I'm going to attempt to do here and see how they play. I'll have to give each of the battalions a grading, so I'll have to sit down and do that now, and then I'll have to have some method of identifying the wear and tear on each battalion as it takes casualties throughout the game. I'm not sure quite the best way of doing that. Some sort of token behind, perhaps. It makes it more immediately obvious how damaged battalions are. The Hessians are going to be a lot less resilient because they have militia and invalids. So they are not going to have a massive staying power once they start to take hits.